this video or this live stream, we're going to be talking about how you can learn Python and the resources you can use. And I'm just going to be breaking down the whole thing. All right. So to get started here, let me go ahead and minimize my screen so you guys can see what I'm looking at here on my computer. And we're going to break this thing down. And if you guys have any questions, just put them in the chat and I will go over the questions after, I finish this whole walkthrough. I'm gonna go ahead and let's minimize this. All right, this looks good. All right, so if you're gonna be learning how to program in Python, I know a lot of people take courses, and when they take the course, they take the entire course, finish it, they're watching a bunch of videos, taking notes. But if you're trying to learn a programming language, especially an easy one is Python, which can be a little confusing as well, you have to practice as you go, right? You have to practice. That's going to be the reality of it. And if you want to get good at it, you have to keep practicing. So the first thing you want to do if you're going to be learning Python is to download Python. So, if you this is where you're going to be able to download it on python.org. So you download this. Once you download this, it's installed in your computer. You can download what's called a code editor or an IDE, I believe. So I use PyCharm. All right, so this is, I think, one of the good ones. There's quite a few. Let me show you here. I think I have a website with here 9 best ones, right? So you have let's see, you have some online versions of this where you don't even have to download this. You can just use it online. So there's this one online compiler from Program Wiz or Miz or Program Is. You also have Ideally. This is free, and PyCharm is also free because it is what do they call it? Open source, so it's free. You also have Sublime Text 3. You also have some of these are gonna be paid. Some have like a free version and a paid version. I would just go with the free ones, like PyCharm or what is it? What's this one? This is Atom. I think this one is free as well. You also have Thorny. You also have PyCharm. This is the one I use. There's a paid version if you're using it for a company, I believe. But if you're just using it for yourself, if you don't need to add a team of like 20 people, you'd be great. You don't need to use that. Um, then we also have Visual Studio Code. I know a lot of people use Visual Studio. It's similar to PyCharm. I believe that this one is completely free. There's no any, yeah. So you can use. I recommend PyCharm, which is what I use. I liked how it looked. Or you can use Visual Studio. Those are the two that I recommend. All right, so once you have you've installed Python on your computer, you have your code editor, which is one of these, PyCharm or what's the name here? Visual Studio Code. Now you have those, you're ready to go, right? So first thing I would do is when it comes to learning Python, right? Python is library driven. So this means that you're never going to be able to understand the entire Python language because there's hundreds of thousands of libraries. I'll show you here. So you can be an expert in what you do. So if you do Python for finance, you can learn the libraries that are involved in your work, right? The projects that you're working on. Now here, this is where I learned how to code in Python. So what you have to do in Python is learn the basics, right? So if I go to, I'll show you my completion certificate here. I cover this, so I don't dox myself, but but yeah. So this is once you complete. I think Python 3 is the newest version. Um, but you need to go to a website like Code Academy. You don't have to go to this one. You can go to any other website, right, where it allows you to learn the basics of Python. And these basics are going to be right here. So you have for every programming language, these are things that you have to learn. You just do them differently in Python. So you learn things like syntax, variables, strings, numbers, booleans, constants, comments. These are things that are in every programming language. So you're just learning how to do it using Python. Now you can go to let's see here. You have more things here. You have operators. You have the if else statement. You have things like while statements, how to do breaks, continuous, pass, and you also have how to create functions, right? So you have the Python built-in functions. It's a lot of things that this is gonna be the pretty much the if you're gonna learn any other programming language, these are the things that you have to learn to understand it at the core, right? So if you're gonna learn Java, I learned Java when I was in high school for about 3 years. these are kind of like the same thing. Some things may be slightly different because they're unique to Python or Java, but here it's pretty much the same concept. So you're learning the basics to understand how the language works. You have things like lists, especially the dictionaries. You have sets. It's a bunch of basic things. So that's what we have to do. So whenever you go enroll in a Python program course, right? It's gonna be. Let me see if I can find it here for on Code Academy. Where's it at? Uh, I'm not even logged in. Okay, we go to catalog, I believe. What is it? Catalog. Give it a second. Hopefully it loads. Python. So the one I did was this one, Python 3 here. Okay. So this is the newest version of Python, version 3, Python 3. So that's what you want to take. So if you take one of these, hopefully it doesn't make me log in. If you take one of these, 25 hours, I got 45 million people that have taken this course. You get a certificate at the end. Now you have kind of like the syllabus of like, what are you gonna learn? So I love this because they also have an built-in code editor that you can, as you learn, you can code, right? They give you little projects after every lesson. So you learn about, it's pretty much see if I can show you all the lessons here. So you have Hello World, which is the first thing you learn when you learn any type of programming language. Control flow, which is pretty much how to control, the flow of your Python code to include, if, else, or else if statements. You also have how to create lists. You also know how to create loops, create functions, and then there's a little challenge here, and a bunch of other things here that you can learn. But essentially, if you take any intro to Python, these are the things they're going to teach you. They might be broken down differently, but these are the things they're going to teach you. Now, does that mean that you are an expert at finance for Python for finance? No, because there's more things that they don't teach you because Python is such a diverse language that taps into, we can even learn machine learning. You can do all types of things in Python. So the next website I have here, not this one, all right, so once you have all this, let's say you've done everything, you've gone on the website, you've taken a basic intro to Python course, it just teaches you all these functional things that are in every programming language that you need to understand the basic core of this. Now, that is where the libraries come in. So libraries are things specific to a project you're working on. So I'm going to show you some of the, this is just a list of packages that can be used for finance or financial data scientists and things like that. So a library is like a bunch of code that you can import, right? So I can import a library for Wikipedia. And when I have this library, I can say, search for the definition of this word or summarize the code. I'll show you guys. I think it's a lot better when I show you. So some of the libraries that are in here, they describe them a little bit. You have this one. I think this one is the most popular for people that do this type of work. So this is NumPy. I think that's how you say it. This one is more of like for scientific computing with Python. You have so whenever you learn these libraries, right? They are a whole new different, it's a whole new thing to learn, right? So that's why you're never going to be able to be an expert because there's hundreds of thousands of libraries that you can find in Python. Since Python is an open source language, I believe, so people can build their own custom libraries. So I can build my own custom library that anyone else can use, and I'll show you where to find these libraries. So these are gonna be, this is gonna be what's gonna, make you an expert at something, right? So you might know this here. What is it? The basics, right? If you know the basics, great, but you're not an expert, right? Because you don't know how to apply it to, your project. Now, if you're someone who focuses on financial instruments, these are going to be the libraries that you have to be an expert in. And I'll show you guys some examples here in a bit. So you have, all this trading and back testing. You have, things like if you're into quantitative finance, this is the library that you might be using, one of the libraries you might be using. You also have what else here? Analyzer, back trader. This is for trading strategies. So you can literally do anything in Python, like literally anything, anything you can think of. There's a library for it. You just have to know where to find it or what it is. You can also have pandas. That's not the actual pandas, but it's a different version of it. But this is essentially one of the most popular ones that a lot of people use You also have this one, Fin Marketplace or Finance Market, Python or Pi. Um, so it's more, it enables you to analyze market data. So if you're doing things like that, if you're into, trading with algorithms, right? People that build those things in algorithm that trade stocks for them or picks the best stocks. Those are some of the libraries that they use. They also have risk analysis libraries that you can use. This is just like some of the best in each category, but there's probably like hundreds of thousands for each of these. So we have a time series here. So I'm gonna pick one of these so I can show you how you can kind of like learn these libraries here. It's gonna be like the last part of this, and I'll answer some questions if you guys have any questions. So let's find a super interesting one here. What is an interesting one here? Let's do something with trading. Let's see if we can find a good one. So performance response manager portfolios, zipline, yeah. Empirical. Common financial risk performance metrics used by Zipline. Let's try this one. Some of these you just have to test it out. So I'll copy the name here. Now, when you want to download these libraries, you can go to, or know a little bit more about them, you can go to pipeorg. This is the website here. So this is where you're going to be able to find, this is where people post their libraries that they create, right? So if I create a Python library and I make it open source, you can find it on GitHub, obviously, if you want to see the code and how it's made or contribute to it. But here is where someone can publish their own library to be open to the world to use. So we can click on browse projects just to give you a good example. So we can do Python 3 compatible projects. Now you can see that it is a lot of projects on here. A lot. If we go to the 500 pages here just of Python 3 compatible, it goes back to Python 2. But since you always want to use the current version of Python because it's going to be compatible with more libraries that might be published. So here, this is where you can search for the library that you want. So I'm gonna click enter. As you can see here, this is probably the closest match that we can get to that. Yeah. So it's commonly used in quantitative finance. What I like about this is you also have like little descriptions. So what I used to do when I was learning, I still do this. Sometimes I'll, practice. So I'll go in here, just look up some libraries and really understand what they do and make a list of maybe my favorite libraries that I'm likely to use or libraries that I want to learn. So I'll click on this library. Now, this one is a bad one because they usually have a little instruction here where like you can do basic things. But once you know the name, you can look it up like, like I know already this is probably it. I can copy this name and you can search for, and you'll find it somewhere on the internet. Openbase is a good source for libraries.io. So let's start with, what is this one? Openbase. So you have to do your own research. That's why sometimes it can be so hard to learn Python because you have to be doing this additional research. Some of these libraries might be created by someone who has not, put out any instruction on how to use it, right? So you have kind of like have to dig for that information. So we do overview, documentation, tutorials. No tutorials found. So that's why sometimes it can be really hard. Let's try the other website over here. So we have same one. Table of contents. So usually when you find like a tutorial for this on a website, it's gonna look like this. So they have the installation, they also have the usage. So you have simple statistics here. So this is information that is directly tied to the library itself. So it's not gonna be the same for every library. So it gives you like the basics here. These are some of the basics that you'll learn here when you're learning these. Where is it at? The Python basics. You learn about how to import a library, right? How to import, after you import the library, how to import a specific thing. You can see here that, they're importing numpy as np, and then they import empirical. They import max drawdown and alpha beta from the empirical library. So So they usually have like these little examples. It might take a little while to understand what they're trying to do, but the best way to learn how to do this, right? What I usually do if I'm learning this, I see this code here. I can let me go to my Python IED here. So I use this one. This is PyCharm. So to install the package, they have like this little button here where you go to Python packages, and you can look it up. You can type it in down here. Sometimes you can't find it if it's a really old one or a new one. So this probably this one. You kind of like have to take a guess sometimes. So we have the crypto. Let's try this crypto one actually. This looks really interesting. Or just copy this and we can go to see if we can find more information on this. So crypto empirical. So this is a fork quant. I don't know how to say that. Empirical package modified by Jesse to work 24/7 Microsoft cryptocurrency. So it looks like something that can analyze cryptocurrency data. So usually when you go in here, you get that usage part. It's gonna be for every library that you find an example how to use this. You learning how to do it is gonna be on your part to go do the research on how to use the library. Sometimes you find the whole website that covers the entire library. So this looks like okay, okay, we're gonna try some of this. So what I can do here is I can install this. So I have this. Each of these code editors have this part here where you can, download the package. Let's give it a second. You can see the little progression bar over here. Hopefully you guys can see it. Give it a second or two to install that package. That's what's cool about it because it's never gonna overload your system. You can download what you need and what you don't need. Imagine if you had all these hundreds of thousands of packages just installed in here already. So that's why it's so cool to use Python. So if you look over here, there's also some instructions. That's why I like using PyCharm. The same instructions that are on here, you can find them in PyCharm right here on the, kind of like a description of the what it does. All right, so it looks like it's installed right now. It looks like I might need to install NumPy as well, so I can do NumPy. I think I have it installed, maybe not. Yeah, I think I have it installed. Or let's try this over here. Yeah, I might have it, but let's try it. So when I go right here, this is our editor up here. Now I'm just gonna copy this here. So most of the time you want to know if you see what it's doing. This looks like it's interesting here. So returns, it's calculating the returns. I wonder what this is. Benchmark, calculate drawdown, max down, returns, beta, alpha, returns, benchmark. So you can copy this and you can go to your Python code editor, paste it, and you can run it. See if you don't get any errors. So there are no errors. Now you have to understand what's going on here, right? You wanna make sure that you understand this. So that's where the learning comes in. I'm not gonna try to do that right now because I'll probably take forever. I've never used this library before, but this is where you go find a course or maybe a free. There's a lot of free. You don't have to pay for it to learn a library. There's probably a video on crypto empirical. I'll just show you here how you can look for that. We can uh, sometimes what I used to do is I could do examples, something like that. You can see here, let's see, documentation, GitHub pages. Can find this here. Okay, not this one. Go to GitHub here. Rolling measures. Oh, this was just giving out simple statistics. Interesting. Okay, so this is pretty easy to understand. So it looks like, it's creating these functions here, and here it's trying to calculate the max drawdown. I don't know what that is, but let's try to print it on the screen to see what it is. So I calculating the alpha of a stock. Okay, I see. And then you do print, do beta. So we have the alpha and the beta, and it's using these returns here in the benchmark. Okay, this kind of makes sense, but you get the idea of like what you have to do here if you have to learn this. You know, you're learning things that are relevant to your job. That's after you understand obviously these things. You got to know how to create, how to create functions, how to use built-in functions, how to do things like this. So these are things that you learn, but when you learn those libraries, you can apply them within these things. Like what they're trying to do here is calculate the alpha using these returns and benchmark returns up here, and also calculate the beta of, I believe it might be crypto, since this is a crypto library. If you work in finance, I might be doing that for stocks. You know what I mean? So here, there's also other examples here. Rolling measures, calculate the rolling max drawdown. I'm not too familiar with all this language, but if you're into crypto, you might know what this is. Um, but yeah, so if you guys have any questions now, you can fire those in the chat, and we can address them.